Chapter 41. When the sisters arrive at the McGorkle apartment, they are greeted not only by Warble, but also by the mouth-watering aroma of filet mignon and baked potatoes. Doki is now wearing a brightly colored cowboy shirt and a bolo tie, in addition to his cowboy hat and boots. He has doubled his cowboy quotient during the course of the past hour. "You didn't have to get all gussied up," Warble says, half teasing. Doki's face turns serious. "Warble, we're mixing my two favorite things here tonight," he says. "Beer and business. I always get myself fixed up right wherever beer and business are concerned." During the small talk over dinner, the McGorkles learned that Doki and Sylvia had met at the Piggly Wiggly down the street 22 years previously. They had bumped into each other, literally, as Doki was buying some Billy beer and Sylvia a bottle of Chardonnay. Sylvia's maiden name had been Sylvia Mister, and she was at the time a nun in the convent downtown. On their first date, Sylvia called Doki Mr. Sister, and he called her Sister Mister. That didn't last long, though, because Sylvia soon thereafter left the convent and Doki and Sylvia were married a few months later. If she had been able to remain a nun, she would have been Sister Sister. If he had taken her maiden name as his surname, perhaps so that she could remain a nun, hiding her marital status, he would be Mr. Mister. Or if they used the hyphenated style of combining surnames, she could have been Sister Mr. Sister and he Mr. Sister Mister. But they had done none of those things. Over dessert, cheesecake, and coffee, the two couples get down to business. Mary wants to leave the men to their ramblings and rumblings and see what's playing on television, but Sylvia has to stay at the table as she is to play an integral part in the discussion. Seeing this, Mary also stays behind. She is a little curious about Warble's new plan, although her hopes for its success are not, shall we say, overwhelming. The beer they drank before the meal and the wine that was imbibed along with it, as hoped for by Doki and Sylvia, have loosened Warble's tongue considerably. He divulges his business plan without further ado. He is so proud of his fail-proof plan that he simply cannot hold back a self-satisfied smile as he tells them all about it. Reality TV is all the rage these days. Outrageousness is all the rage. Tough guys are all the rage. The deep, dark, dank, dastardly, dungeony elements of society have taken on a mystique among the masses. Warble is beginning to get expansive, gesturing wildly, his eyes getting wider the longer he speaks. Doki interrupts him. "Dungeony, Warble? Ain't that some kind of crab?" "No, Doki," Warble responds, standing up from the table, right index finger pointing toward the sky. Well, the ceiling anyway. Switching into his teaching mode. Dungeony refers to the denizens of our modern-day dungeons, jails, prisons, vocational institutes, correctional facilities, etc. "Here's my plan," Warble says, lowering his voice and sitting back down in his chair, pausing for full effect until all eyes are on him. 24/7 videotaping of life in prisons, he exults. In the yards, the mess halls, the cells themselves, maybe even in the showers. We'll call the show Bad Boys Behind Bars, or Lifestyles of the Captured and Incarcerated. Doki is the first to get it. "Warble, my friend, you are a genius. I've got to hand it to you," he says. Mary looks confused. She doesn't see the attraction of watching a bunch of tattooed bodybuilders yank tufts of each other's hair out while complaining about the quality of the grub and the quantity of the beatings. Sylvia seems pensive. By looking at the expression on her face, you might think she is undecided as to the merits of this program, but her response shows clearly that she, like her husband, has already bought into the idea. After a season or two, once the novelty is worn off, we can move on to other venues such as convents, monasteries, board meetings of Fortune 500 companies, mafia conventions, and so forth. Warble and Doki look at each other and nod, visibly impressed by Sylvia's far-sighted thinking. "Well," Warble suddenly says, his eyes narrowing as the effects of the beer and wine start to wane, "that's my plan, and I've got the whole thing authorized, notarized, and stored in a safe location. So don't try to beat me to the punch here, or I'll have you in court so fast you won't know what hit you." Warble, my friend, Doki pleads. Sylvia and I wouldn't dream of doing something like that. We just want to help you with your plan. It is a good one, and it's starting to garner enough money for all of us. But there's a lot of work to be done, and we can smooth the way for y'all by means of my connections and Sylvia's legal expertise. It turns out that Doki does have connections within the Oklahoma prison system, as he is involved in the supplying of these institutions with pork, beans, and computer printer paper, among other things. And Sylvia, upon leaving the convent, was able to be retrained at government taxpayer expense. She went to law school and happens to be a corporate lawyer now. She will be a priceless benefit to the company in drafting and approving contracts with the prison system, the television companies, and all the other myriad and sundry related business entities that will be involved, either directly or tangentially, in the prison television series. There's no limit to how much money we can make here, Warble says, and the moolah we get from the television stations is just the beginning. Think of the possibilities. Viewers will each adopt their own favorite convict and watch the show each week just to see what he's been up to. For example, an accountant may key in on someone who is in the big house for embezzlement. A pharmaceutical company executive may focus on a man who's been locked up for drug dealing, and so forth. I can see that, Warble, Sylvia says, but how will these fixations bring in additional money for us? I don't see the connection. As some of our stars begin to build up a following, Warble explains, sponsors will be willing to pay big bucks to get these gents to advertise for them. Doki slams his hand on the table, which startles Mary, who has long since retired to the living room to watch Mayberry RFD reruns. Ingenious, Warble, my boy. Doki yells, "Go on, man, go on." Okie dokie, Warble says, nodding his head in acknowledgement of the praise. Anyway, we'll get these jailbirds to sign contracts in advance so that we get the lion's share of the proceeds. We'll give them a few bucks to use the sponsor's product while they're on camera, or if they recommend it to a fellow inmate or guard, or perhaps even wear t-shirts with the sponsor's logo on it. It wouldn't be responsible on our part to give the convicts very much of the money. They would just waste it anyway. Actually, we'll be doing them a favor by shielding them from the temptations that come with having money and the stress that naturally accompanies a change in circumstance. Warble McGorkle, Doki Beams, you truly are a giant among men. With our priceless assistance in getting all this set up and running all legal and above board, so to speak, we're all going to be as rich as Rockefeller in no time.